Hope all is well with everyone. We're now back in New York. Um, Back in New York as of a number of hours ago. Um, Number of hours ago, like 3 hours ago. Um, Not too long. 3 hours. Yeah, probably about that. Maybe a little bit more, but about 3 hours ago. And minutes after I came, right? Like just a few minutes after I came, um, you know, and I kind of did this stream because I really wanted to talk about the trip, um, that I took. If you guys do follow this channel, which a lot of you do, you'll realize that I actually took a trip over there to Cleveland and also to Chicago, right? So I was in Cleveland, I was in Chicago. I slid by Akron, Ohio as well. Had to go tap in to see what Akron, Ohio looked like. Um, you know, I gotta say, all really these towns were all smooth. These cities were all smooth. Um, you know, I didn't really meet anyone or speak to anyone while I was in Akron, but delightfully so when I was in Cleveland. There was hospitality in Cleveland, and Chicago was a lot nicer than I thought it was. I did interact with a few people in Chicago as well. Not many words were exchanged, except in Cleveland. I mean, some friendly young ladies walked up to me and introduced themselves, and they were really kind, right? Until they left not long after. But yeah, like the trip over there, man, the trip over. I'm gonna get into the stuff having to do with the mayor in a little bit. But yeah, the trip over there, man. I remember at one point, and driving over there, right? Like I'm on this road. I've never been on this highway before, right? The car is about to run out of gas and stuff like that, and there was like because a lot of times people are working on construction and stuff like that, so certain roads be blocked off or whatever, right? So I checked on maps to see where the closest gas station would be, right? So now, having checked on maps, it was like having checked on maps. What's up, Wooby? What's going on, my guy? Having checked on maps, it's like it says, all right, the next exit, right? So now I get to the next exit was probably I want to say it's like a good 5 miles away from where I was, maybe four, right? So I get to the next exit. Lo and behold, at the next exit, it's blocked off. Now I got to get gas, right? I absolutely need to get gas. And it's telling me that it's redirecting me to come back 25, 30 miles, right? To get to the next point where I have gas. Luckily for me, after I used the other app, right, because I wasn't using maps initially. Initially, I might have been using Waze, right? So Waze wasn't really picking up on everything. And then when I used maps, maps was able to kind of redirect me to where there was a gas station not too far away. So I was able to get the gas right after that. So yeah, that was an experience and a half, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? That was an experience and a half. But I knew I would get it together. But yeah, especially with the rain and all the trucks and everything that was going by. Yeah, it wasn't a very smooth situation to be in, but the situation was handled, and I had a really really good trip. Went out there in Cleveland, went out there in Chicago, two very 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 lovely cities. I do plan on visiting Chicago and Cleveland again sometime in the future. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time in those places as well. But yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Big up to Chicago. Big up to Cleveland. We're gonna get into that in a little bit, right? But um, so having come back to New York from Chicago, right? Didn't get much sleep or anything. I mean, I did rest for a few hours at a time, right? Rest for a few hours at a time at some of these rest stops. And finally made it to my destination, which is here in New York, right? So having made it back to New York, I think I was on like on Instagram or something like that, and I saw I believe it might have been 50 Cent that actually broke the news, which is crazy, right? That the mayor of New York was indicted, and I was actually I was actually shocked. I wasn't shocked because he got indicted. I was shocked more of the timing of it because there was already kind of investigations kind of going on with him, and there were kind of some shady business going on around him. Um, you understand what I'm saying? So you know, you've had certain people that were in his cabinet kind of just step down, and various different things. Like there was this pastor that was involved throwing his name around, all sorts of stuff. So I believe he's been investigated for quite a bit of time now. Sarah, what's up, Sarah? Sarah's in here. How you doing, Sarah? Hello. Thought I'd pop in and say hi before I go back to sleep. It's 4:48 a.m. here. Big up yourself, Sarah. It's always lovely to see you. I haven't really streamed much these last couple of days because, like I said, I did stream while I was in Chicago for like 10 minutes, right? I did like two streams. Probably like 15 minutes the first one, but like 10 minutes the second one. But I did stream in Cleveland, and it's always lovely to see you, Sarah. No matter for how long or for what, right? It's just graceful. Your presence is graceful. Everything about you is just great, and I appreciate you tapping in, Sarah. Big up yourself. Have you ever been to San Antonio? Is that SA San Antonio? I've never been to San Antonio. No, if that's what you're asking. Kaniel, G Kaniel. Okay. I'm doing good, just tired. How are you? It's always lovely to see you. You and me both, Sarah. You and me both. um yeah, I definitely could relate right now. Especially the journey. Now, guys, from New York to San Francisco, not San Francisco. What am I talking about? From New York to Chicago, right? If you're going directly there, it's like 12, 13 hours, right? Depending on what route you take and all of that sort of stuff, right? It could be anywhere from, let's say, 12 to 15 hours, right? If you're going there directly. But I didn't go there directly, right? Like I did stop off at Cleveland, like you guys did see, and I'm gonna stop. Like I'm not gonna just drive 12 hours without stopping, right? You got to stop. You got to get gas. You got to go to the rest stop. Get some rest. Get the blood circulating in your body again. Things like that. So I was doing quite a bit of those things as well. But I gotta say I had a really great time. But anyway, we're gonna talk more about that in a little bit. I do want to get into this story because this is crazy. It's actually something that actually, I live in New York, New York City, so this is one of those things that actually does affect residents of New York City, right? Um, you know, New York needs a mayor. Yeah, Sarah, it is a long journey. It's a long journey. I'm gonna get more into that in a little bit. I don't know what I'm trying to say. All I know is I know some type of feeling that keeps me locked up every single day in my head space, every single day when I go to sleep and have some kind of dreams. Okay, James, I appreciate you for sharing that. I'll get right back to you and the rest of you guys. I just want to get into the story about Eric Adams before I get to talking all about, giving you guys the whole breakdown and everything that happened. You know what I mean? From leaving from New York, going to Akron, like actually turning back to go to Akron to see what's happening in Akron, and then going to Cleveland, and then just the various um, the various stops while I was on my way there. I'll just break it down for you guys in a little bit. Okay, so evidently the situation that happened with Mayor Adams is federal corruption. Wow. All right, well, let's see. Ironically, I'm going to be reading this from the BBC. The BBC, as you guys do know, it's UK based. But, it's one of those things where you don't have to subscribe to actually read. So, it was the first one I clicked that you didn't have to subscribe and put in your email address or whatever it is. So we're going to go with what the BBC is saying right now. New York City Mayor is the irony of it, right? New York City Mayor Eric Adams indicted on federal charges. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is facing federal criminal charges, according to CBS News, the BBC's U.S. partner. Adams, who's 64, was elected to lead the most populous U.S. city nearly 3 years ago on promise to rein in on crime. But he and a string of top officials in orbit have faced growing scrutiny as part of a multiple federal corruptions probe. The indictment remains sealed, but would make Adams, 64, the first mayor in New York City history to be charged while in office, guys. If you guys do remember, Rudy Giuliani sort of was charged, right? I don't quite remember what the charges were. I didn't pay much attention to it, but I do remember that there was something that happened with Rudy Giuliani, who also was tough on crime, but he ended up getting indicted, right? And he kind of had some sort of issues as well, but we're not gonna get too much into that. But yeah, he got indicted, but he wasn't in office, so he got indicted long after he left office, right? And then in this situation, this is the first mayor in New York City history that got indicted while in office. I've heard of cases of mayors in various different cities that have gotten into situations, um, you know, while they were in office, but never heard of it happening in New York. So that could be correct. I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers, I would be a target. And a target I became, Adams said in a statement to BBC. If I am charged, I am innocent, and I will fight this with every ounce of my strength and spirit. Federal prosecutors are expected to unseal the indictment on Thursday, when Adams will make an initial court appearance, CBS News reports. Wow. The reported charges come less than a year after federal agents seized Adams' electronic devices and searched the home of Brianna Suggs, his chief fundraiser. It was later revealed that the U.S. Attorney Office in Manhattan was looking into whether Adams' 2021 mayoral campaign team conspired with the government of Turkey to funnel illegal donations into the campaign. All right, so we're getting somewhere here. The New York Times reported on Monday that prosecutors subpoenaed the campaign and the mayor's office for information related to 5 other countries: Israel, China, Qatar, South Korea, and Uzbekistan. Adams has remained steadfast that he would remain in office even as a growing list of officials have called for his resignation. Earlier Wednesday, U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a popular figure in left-leaning New York, joined that list. I do not see how Mayor Adams can continue governing New York City, Cortez wrote to X. For the good of the city, he should resign. That person also recent flood resignations and vaccines that she said were threatening the city's government abilities to function. All right, so we did get a little. So they're saying evidently he might have took some funds from Turkey or something along those lines. I'm not entirely sure if that really is what it is. But there's been some shady business happening around the mayor. Again, that one pastor that was scamming people kept on dropping his name. Situations having to do with people getting extorted by members of his actual team, allegedly, right? These were allegations. But the first one with the pastor, I think he actually was indicted. So maybe he was kind of the leak. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just speculating. Kind of gave up some information or whatever it is. But, end of the day, it's like, man, look. You want to think that these people that do go into office are people that are clean cut and people that want to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, it seems as if most of these people that do get into office are in office for self-interest. You know what I mean? For the most part. And I hate to come on here and really, I don't want to judge anyone's character, right? Because again, these are allegations. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's false. I don't know anything about the situation. But there were some allegations about people around him that have done things. Again, because I'm not there with these individuals, I can't say, hey, yeah, if this person actually, I can't confirm or deny these things. These can be just, these are only going to be based on what opinions are, because again, we don't have the information. We only go by what CNN or what ABC is saying, or what the news is saying, and they might not always have all of their facts right. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is rather unfortunate. It's unfortunate for New York City. It's unfortunate for people that are involved in the situation. You know, yeah, it's just rather unfortunate. Um, he just seemed like a really clean cut guy. I mean, I remember being at an event. I know he's very well protected. I remember being at an event where he actually made an appearance at that event. And believe me when I tell you, he is very well protected. They scope out the situation before he gets there, and then make way for him to leave. And then he never really kind of leaves where people could actually see him and stuff like that. And they have their whole way of kind of doing things in regards to the mayor. But I don't know, man. I really don't really know what to really say about this. But yeah, it seemed as if it was a lot of things happening around him that were kind of sketchy, right? So for me, it was only a matter of time. It's just the timing that kind of caught me off guard, because it's like, oh, you don't say, really. Soon as I get back to New York, this is what it is that I heard. And it's rather unfortunate, because, you see the mayor and you think to yourself, oh, well, he's a black mayor and this, that, and the third, and blase, blase, blah, right? Come to find out, he ain't that much different from a lot of these mayors. He ain't that much different from a lot of them. Some of them do it, some get caught, some don't get caught, right? It's just that he happens to be one of those that got caught. You know what I mean? I don't know what else to really say about it. But yeah, it's rather unfortunate. I would want to think, the mayor was gonna go in there and try to do a good job, and try to represent for himself and his community, and the people of New York. You know what I mean? To represent the people in New York. But it seemed as if they had their own interest, right? Not only him though, but also like the people around him as well. But yeah, that's just rather unfortunate, man. That's really unfortunate. You don't like to hear it, but again, it's not like he didn't. It's not one of those things where I don't know, right? Because again, it's sealed, right? It's sealed, so we don't really actually really know what the charges are. But it would seem as if, yeah, it's something having to do with some sort of funds or whatever it is, or you know what I mean. It's not like how would you say it now? He didn't harm anyone, right? As of right now, from what we're seeing. But either way, man, certain things that you just can't do, and certain things you shouldn't do as a mayor. I think in a perfect world, in an ideal world, in an ideal America, these politicians are really clean cut, and they actually really mean what they say. They actually stand up for who they really are. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't even really know what to say about it, to be completely honest with you. But let me get into some of this chat to see how you guys are doing. Big up, Sarah. Sarah says, "Hey, I'm doing good, just tired. How are you?" Oh, I think I actually read that already. Texas Repo says, "I'm in San Antonio." Big up yourself, Texas Repo. That is a long journey. You're absolutely right, Sarah. James McDaniel says, "I don't know what I'm trying to say." I think I already read these, to be honest with you. Yeah, Sarah, I definitely had a good time out there. Definitely had a good time. Definitely had a good time out there. James McDaniel says that I can never explain that I'm just making some songs. It's just what is my mind is just went to another. All right, James, I'm sorry, but we're gonna try to focus on the topic, and I'm gonna be doing more focusing on the topic as opposed to reading like side messages. So if you got anything to really contribute about tribute to what it is that we're talking about in terms of the mayor, or if you got any questions about, New York, Cleveland, Chicago, what I mean, I could answer those questions based on what it is that I know, right? This has been happening for 3 years in my state. Did you know about it? Probably not. Educate yourself. You seem like a smart guy. What exactly are you talking about? It's been happening for 3 years. Salutations. Greetings from Washington, D.C., says Art of Mind. Big up yourself, Art of Mind. Peace to you, my guy. Big up yourself, man. Big up to Washington, D.C. I looked at Washington on the map and I was like, should I go? And I was like, nah. Initially, I was going to go to Rhode Island. I was going to try to go like to a few of those New England states, maybe like New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, maybe do like a little boat ride or something like that. But then I was like, nah, let me go to Chicago. I want to go to Chicago. I want to see what Chicago is like. Bunch of tolls on the way there. If you take I-80, forget it. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it. Forget it. A whole bunch of tolls. Um, I don't even know how to explain it, but sometimes some of the places where these tolls are at didn't even make sense. But it is what it is, right? It happened. I got to experience Chicago. I got to experience a few really cool cities, so it was cool. Official Nathan Wyatt says hello again. How you doing, Nathan Wyatt? Big up yourself. Thank you so much for joining in once again. I don't plan on making the stream hella long, guys. I kind of just wanted to really just break down what it is that happened. On my way. Good. How are you? I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I'm a bit tired though, as you can probably see with my eyes. My eyes are probably not probably. They are bloodshot red right now. I was gonna go to sleep, but I was like, nah. Let me go ahead and get up. Make some content, speak to the people, and just tap in with them. So, a few things that I got to tell you guys about these cities, right? So, number one, I gotta say is this, right? I gotta say this. The image that I had in my head for these cities and what I actually saw. So, Cleveland, I don't know why I didn't expect. Sarah says my eyes probably look like beetroot, to be honest. Sarah's always making me laugh, man. Always making me laugh. All right, so where was I? All right, so Cleveland, right? Cleveland. So in my head, I was thinking to myself, yo, Cleveland's probably like this little, just hole in the wall city. Probably like dusty. You know what I mean? I don't know why I was thinking this about Cleveland, guys. I don't know why I was thinking that about Cleveland. And to be fair, I went to Cleveland at nighttime, so I didn't, and I was like really downtown Cleveland, so I don't really know what the outskirts of Cleveland really look like. To be honest with you, I was mostly downtown in Cleveland, and it was really clean, to say that the absolute least, right? It was really clean. There weren't a lot of people outside. I did see quite a few homeless people, and I saw a few other people as well. But I didn't see too much like, you know, devious activity while I was in Cleveland, right? While I was trying to take this picture, you know what I mean? I was trying to take the picture of what was his name? Moses Cleveland, I believe is the name of the gentleman who discovered Cleveland, General Moses Cleveland. So I was trying to take a picture of the statue, and then this young lady was like, "Hey, friend." So me, especially coming from New York and being conditioned like the New York way of life, everybody in New York kind of just minds their business and just is tunnel vision on to the next, right? So when she was like, "Hey, friend," I looked around. And then I looked at her. I was like, because there's nobody there, right? And she was like, "Yeah, you," right? And then her and her friends, they came over. So it was three of them. They came over. They introduced themselves. You know what I mean? And I let them know, "Hey, I'm from New York, just taking some pictures. You guys have a lovely city here, this, that, and the third. Had a little dialogue, and they then went on their way. I shook their hand. They actually went on their way. Got to, I did not remember any of their names, right? But then they went on their way, and I went on my way. I was on live, and then I went on live stream. Not long after that, went on live stream. Was kind of talking to you guys. And then it was just like this homeless guy that was kind of interacting with me a little bit. And he was saying some stuff that was just kind of far out. But at the same time, he's still a human being just like everyone else. So, we had our conversation or whatever. But I kept it short, kept it moving. And then when I was walking, so I'm walking, right? I'm walking away from the guy. And I kid you not, we end the conversation and he's still yelling stuff. So I'm trying to get back to streaming, right? And like the conversation's done, and then he's like, "Yeah." And then it's like I'm responding to him while I'm trying to talk to you guys. So it's like every step that I took for like the next 10, 20 steps, it's like he was still communicating with me even though I was like way down the street. You know what I mean? So that was pretty funny. That was pretty unique. Went around the corner, kind of was still streaming and everything like that. Showed you guys everything that I really saw. But Cleveland was really nice. They even have a casino there. Didn't go to the casino. But like these things, it's certain things that kind of happen when you do go to these cities, right? You get to see that people are just people, right? So a lot of times you want to go to a different environment thinking people are different, in which in some ways, in some cases they are, right? Like everyone has their own unique experience, right? Even, we're all spiritual beings having human experience, right? Like we've already established that, right? But really and truly, we're not all that much different. People kind of want the same things. And I just remember these young guys, right? I remember overhearing their conversation, right? And because I was right next to the casino. So overhearing their conversation, it was like, yeah, man, I was up $300, man. I bought $40 with me. I was up $300, and then I lost it, right? And then there was his friend that was behind me. He was like yelling. He's like, ah, like he was enraged because he evidently lost more than $300. So obviously, like, he's gonna be upset because he just lost a whole lot of money. So yeah, so he's there, he's upset, and then the other kid's like, "Man, hey, you want to come back tomorrow? What time? Like 8 a.m." So they're literally thinking about coming back to the casino at 8 a.m. Now, mind you, it's probably at this time it's probably like 2:30 something, maybe 3 o'clock a.m. in the morning, right? Like it's definitely after 2 a.m. in the morning for sure. So it's already hella late. You understand what I'm saying? And the first thing that they're thinking about is how can we come back to the casino to do it again? You understand what I'm saying? So it's one of those things that kind of reminded me of myself when I was younger. You know what I mean? Yeah, I used to go to the casino, not too often, but there were times when I did lose money at the casino, right? Thinking that I was going to come up big. And it just kind of reminded me of myself when I was younger, going to the casino. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I do these days because I wisened up and I realized that casino is not there to give you any money. You know what I mean? You may get lucky, but you're probably not going to get all the way lucky at the casino. So yeah, that was that. But just kind of sitting back and just paying attention to certain interactions that were happening in the various different cities. That I thought that was pretty cool. But then after, they ended up leaving, I was already on my way to leaving as well. I was thinking about going to Detroit, but then I was like, nah, Detroit, that's away. And then I've, all of these tolls, maybe I got to pay more tolls and this, that, and the third. No. So I ended up not going to Detroit. I ended up being like, you know what? We're going straight to Chicago. So then from there, went to Chicago, right? Went to Chicago, and Chicago was absolutely beautiful. I got to admit, Chicago was very beautiful. A lot cleaner, again, than I thought it would be, right? Because when you're used to Manhattan, beautiful city, Manhattan, very wealthy city, right? But Manhattan, let's just be honest, right? Like, it's not the cleanest place on the world, right? You understand what I'm saying? But and I'm talking about like outside, right? Some of these penthouses and stuff like that, obviously they're going to be clean on the inside, but on the outside, it's not really the cleanest place in the world, right? When you're looking at these buildings, they look nice and everything like that, but with the amount of people and the amount of tourists and all of that sort of stuff, I know it gets difficult for people to really keep the city clean. But I think that that's something that we could do, is where we could kind of employ people, like if we're gonna pay our taxes or whatever it is, like pay somebody to keep the goddamn city clean. You understand what I'm saying? Pay somebody to keep the city clean, right? So that when people come here, they're like, oh my God, New York is so beautiful and it's so clean and it's so this and it's so that. Like, it's too much money, too much wealth, too much happening in the city. Why is the city not clean like when I go to these other cities in the Midwest? So that's one thing that kind of stood out to me. Because these cities in the Midwest, especially up in the North, like Chicago, Cleveland, they kind of reminded me of Toronto a little bit, right? Because when I went to Toronto, so as one of the things that stood out again was that Toronto was clean. Plus, I went in the wintertime. You know, these places get extremely cold. But yeah, I think that's something that we could work on when it comes to New York City, keeping the city clean, right? And it all starts with each and every one of us as well as people that live in the city. So yeah, Chicago, the buildings were beautiful, the streets were beautiful, and it's this big city. It's not quite the size of New York. Plus, like, New York is kind of it has like different boroughs, and it's like the different boroughs are like separated by, well, Manhattan is on an island by itself, but you got to cross a bridge to get to the Bronx. You got to cross a bridge from the Bronx to get to Queens, right? Queens and Brooklyn are kind of already intertwined. Staten Island is its own sort of entity. You understand what I'm saying? So even though it's one city, it's kind of like in different sort of pockets, right? Chicago, it's like it's just one city that's just there. This is the city of Chicago. So you be driving in the different neighborhoods, and you only see the scenery changing. You don't really, it's not like a bridge that takes you to the other side of Chicago, right? But yeah, I thought, well, at least I don't know. Like, I haven't gone to the side of Chicago where it's like these are bridges that separate this side of Chicago from this side of Chicago. And again, it's one of those places where it's very populated. Most of the people that live in Illinois live in the Chicago area or the suburbs, right? Kind of like New York. Most of the people that live in New York State, this big ass state, most of them live in New York, or yeah, most of them live in New York. Some of them live in Westchester, some of them live in Long Island, but most of the people in New York State live in this region. As a matter of fact, this region that we live in, right? This tri-state region, New York, Jersey, I want to say Connecticut, New York, Jersey, Connecticut, but it might be New York, Jersey, Philly. But either way, right? This area that we live in here is the most populated area in the entire United States. So yeah, you know what I mean? As far as like competing in terms of like popularity, you're probably not going to get a more populated city. It's the most populated city in America is New York. But if you want like a really nice chill city, and I'm sure Chicago has its reputation of being a very gangster city and this, that, and the third, right? I didn't see any of that when I was out there. I kind of just saw this one kid. I did see this one thing though, and it kind of made me think, because I see the culture of Chicago that I see is on like from my screen, from like YouTube, from the TV, right? And Chicago just seems to be this very aggressive like city, right? But when I went there, like I said, it was really chill. But again, I wasn't even really in the hoods. I was downtown Chicago for the vast majority of it. I did kind of drive through a few of the hoods, but I was mostly downtown, right? So I didn't really see anything kind of happen. But I remember driving, right? And I always remember driving. I can't, like I'm looking like I'm trying to remember the street. I don't remember the street. I'm just driving on a street, a random street in Chicago, and I see this kid at the bus stop. And this kid's probably like 10, 11 years old, right? Maybe, right? And I see this kid, and he's a young kid, sort of has hair similar to mine, right? Sort of has dreadlocks, right? And I remember seeing the kid, and he's at the bus stop, and he's like stomping his feet, and he's looking around, and he's like, you could read when you're reading his lips, it's like he's saying, bitch, 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 like he's saying the B word, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, why is this kid? Where's his parents? Why is he out here stomping at the floor saying these things? And it just kind of dawned on me the conditioning of this. Like, I don't know what situation he comes from, or what neighborhood he comes from, what environment he comes from, but it seemed as if this kid is in gladiator school somewhere, right? And it seems as if this kid feels as if the only way that he can kind of get attention from people, because again, while he was doing it, he's looking around to see if other people are seeing him. He doesn't have any headphones in or anything like that, but maybe he's doing it for attention, right? So that's what I kind of thought to myself, like, this kid's doing it for attention. And then when I kind of look at some of the newer, especially like drill rappers that do come out of Chicago, I see that a lot of them are very young, right? Like, these are the young kids, and they get into a whole world of trouble because these young kids are just not guided in the right direction. And it seems as if it's just the blind leading the blind, and they feel as if the only way they can get attention is by being a menace to whatever environment that they're in. And that's the unfortunate part about that, right? So I kind of, you know, I didn't approach the kid. I didn't say anything to the kid. This is not like one of those situations where it's like I'm going to try to make this into a teaching sort of situation where I could speak to the kid about this. No, right? That's not my place to do that. But at the same time, it's just one of the things where it's like, all right, well, how could I possibly impact that kid in a way where, or impact kids like that in a way where they don't feel as if that's the only thing that they have to do in order to get attention, that they can actually do something with themselves, right? Because that could possibly be a very bright kid, but the environment that he's in, he might feel as if this is what he has to do in order to maybe get attention or in order to make it in life, right? Which is the sad part, right? So that's the one sort of isolated incident in Chicago that I kind of saw, that I was like, oh wow, okay, all right, cool. Well, this kid is definitely not from this environment of Chicago that I'm seeing right now. And obviously, you don't know the whole culture just by going to Chicago for a few hours or for a day or two. But yeah, he's probably from a different sort part of Chicago, and he feels as if this is sort of what he has to do to kind of get attention. So that was one incident that kind of stood out to me. But yeah, the people there in Chicago were very nice. Cookout Northwest says kid needs love. Yeah, he definitely does. Kind of like Slim Shady being controversial, even though Eminem is a legend. I'm sure the kids will assume controversy is the only way to get attention. Yeah, yeah. And that's the sad part about it, though. That's the sad part about it, especially with the American culture and the culture in Chicago, right? It's what a lot of the Chicagoites, Chicago's people. Not entirely sure what they call themselves. But people from Chicago. You know, when you really kind of look at, the culture of maybe people that are from his environment and what it is that they're known for. I'm sure everyone in these environments are not like that, right? But what it is that they're known for, it's not exactly like pleasant things. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're coming up conditioned to think the way how other people around you think, you might, the kid probably doesn't even know that what he's doing is just wrong. You know what I mean? He probably doesn't even know that because nobody's ever really sat him down and had a discussion with him like, hey, maybe you probably shouldn't try to imitate or emulate this life. Maybe try to do something better with yourself. And that's the sad part about it, right? I grew up in similar environments. Probably not as extreme as the environment that he's in. But yeah, man, it was just one of those things. But yeah, I remember, I kind of remember like I did network with, well, not really network, but I kind of, I guess you could call it network. I did network with some of the locals while I was there. I do remember this other time while I was driving, right, and I saw this one guy, probably like a college kid, right, and I just remember this kid. It puzzled the shit out of me. I was so puzzled when I saw it, right, because like in this time, I'm thinking to myself, yo, is this kid, is he on something or something like that? Because I just remember this kid, and again, he's probably like, this kid is probably like 20 something years old, right? So I remember like he's about to cross the street, and this is like I've never seen anything like this, not in real life. But it's like he's about to cross the street, right? But when he's about to cross the street, it's like it's almost as if he had this thought that stopped him in mid stride. So now he stops in mid stride, and then he looks around. He shifts his body like that, and then he shifts his body like that again, and then he does this, and then he does this, and I think he was just trying to cross the street. But I'm trying to understand like what is with all of the shoulder movement until eventually he just shifts his body like this again, and then does this about face and just walks across the street. And I remember just being there, like, just so dumbfounded by what it is that I was seeing, because I'm like, yo, what exactly is going on here? Like, what's happening in this guy's life? Why he had to double and triple take before he actually crossed the street? But yeah, that was a quite unique thing to really see. You should have seen the look on my. I was really puzzled. I'm like, yo, why is this guy just flapping his arm like that while he's trying to cross the street? But yeah, when you kind of go into these new environments, you tend to notice things. I guess your awareness is kind of heightened because it's like you're paying attention to what's happening with the locals, and maybe thinking to yourself, what is it that makes them or separates them from the city that you're from, or the area that you're from. But again, people are just people. There's people in New York that do weird things as well. There's people in New York that, everybody in New York is not the same, right? No two people are the same. But yeah, I did have a really good time when I went over to Chicago. I do plan on making another Chicago trip. Maybe not right away because I want to go to Denver before I go to Chicago. So maybe my next trip is probably going to be like Denver. I'll probably go to like the Rocky Mountains, maybe go see what's happening over there in Nevada and stuff like that. Maybe San Francisco. Who knows, right? But I'm probably not going to be driving. I'm probably not going to be driving from New York to go to those places, though. Or if I do drive, I won't be driving by myself. You could bet your bottom dollar I will not be driving by myself when I do these things. But yeah, that was pretty much my trip, and the journey on the way back was also unique in and of itself as well. Because it's like I left a few days ago, and I didn't notice the trees were changing colors, and on my way back, right, I started noticing, especially in Pennsylvania, fall is upon us, right? Like the trees are starting to turn red and yellow and orange and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, Pennsylvania is also beautiful. I would say the countryside, though, I didn't mention some of the states that I drove through, right? I did mention Ohio because Cleveland and Akron obviously are in Ohio. But the countryside in Ohio is not really, it's not all that, right? It's not like the countryside in like New York. Like the countryside in New York is just gorgeous. The countryside in Pennsylvania is gorgeous. The countryside in New Jersey is gorgeous. When you get to like Indiana, Ohio, and maybe it was just the region where we were in Indiana and Ohio, but it's just flat and just blah, not really much happening. It's just flat grass, trees sporadically, right? But it's not like, to me, New York, Pennsylvania, Jersey, the countryside is just absolutely gorgeous. Um, Thrifty, how you doing, Thrifty? She says, "Hey, you're wearing blue. It's definitely your color." Thrifty be making me blush. Big up yourself, Thrifty. Thank you so much for that. Hope you're having a great night. I was kind of just explaining to everybody my trip that I took recently. But yeah, the countryside, if you're driving from New York, and that was another thing that I really wanted to see. I really wanted to see the countryside, right? That's a big reason why whenever I do these road trips, I'm critiquing you based on your countryside as well. If the countryside is not hitting, you're gonna lose points. So Indiana, if I could jump over Indiana, I'm sure it's a very beautiful place, really, in a lot of different places in Indiana. But if I could just skip over Indiana, I wouldn't have missed much, to be honest with you. And this is, again, no shade at Indiana. I'm sure it's a very beautiful place. But from what I saw, it just wasn't my favorite, right? But maybe it was just the region of Indiana where I was, right? I'm sure Indianapolis and all those other places are really nice. We passed through Gary, Indiana, which is where Michael Jackson is from. But yeah, didn't really stop in Gary, Indiana. But yeah, the countryside in Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania were by far the best countryside. Um, but once you start to go to Ohio, the countryside's not all that. I expected more from Illinois, but again, I didn't spend too much time in the country part of Illinois as well. So there's that, and there's not like a whole lot of mountains where we were either in Indiana and Ohio. So kind of lost a little bit of points because of that. But all in all, I really had a good time. I had a really, really good time. And the journey was long, but you could bet your bottom dollar I would do it again. I definitely would do it again. And yeah, when you're single, guys, if you're single, you don't have anybody that's, and I don't want to say it like in a way where it makes it sound lonely or anything like that, but you don't have like a significant other, right? And you're single, you're by yourself, just get up and, go enjoy life. Thrifty says, I love road trips. Me too, Thrifty. Absolutely love road trips. Yeah, road trips are some of my favorite things to do. Maybe Slim Shady had plans to go to college and wanting to play basketball, says James McDaniel. Anyway, guys, big up yourselves. I kind of just wanted to share that story. I wasn't going to stay long tonight because, as you can see, my eyes are bloodshot red. I am tired. I just kind of wanted to tell you guys about my trip. Um, and yeah, consistency is going to start to come again. But once we meet our goals with YouTube, I'm thinking that we're going to the content that we're going to make, um, I think we're going to pick a certain days that we're going to go live. I'm going to try to go live every day, but there's going to be certain days where it's going to be like these days are the guarantees where I go live, right? But until we meet our goal, I'm going to still continue to go live as frequently and as often as possible. But then once we meet those goals, right, we're going to cut back and just decide, all right, cool. Well, we're going to be on, and just hypothetically speaking, maybe Mondays and Wednesdays or whatever it is. That way I could kind of do other things as well. And that way, I could really tap into you guys, and, we could all tap in with one another, and we could miss each other a little bit. Yeah, Sarah, I had a really, really good time. James, I'm a fan of M and Shady anyway, so it wasn't intended as a diss. Nah, Sarah, I didn't think you were trying to diss him. Um, it's okay, bro, and I wasn't trying to diss her, and I'm still listening, bro. And congratulations, by the way. Thank you so much. Congratulations for what? On the trip? I appreciate it. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for tonight. I'm gonna try to get some sleep. I'm probably gonna watch a movie or something and then go to sleep. But I do appreciate each and every one of you. I love each and every one of you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Right? We'll pick an interesting topic to talk about. Have a great night, everyone. Bye bye.